Hey everyone, okay, so in this portion of the masterclass, it's time for foundation. Now I'm going to be using a cream foundation. The skin has already been prepped from video 1 when we started the skin prep. So you're going to need a sponge. Now I'm going to be using my sponge dry. The reason being is because if I go too close to my lash line, I have watery eyes and a wet sponge can exacerbate that. So I'm just going to use a dry sponge. Now I'm going to start with a dab in the center. That's it, a little bit here, and then I'm going to move it out. Now it's worth noting you can use your fingers, a sponge, a brush. It's entirely up to you, whatever works for you. I'm also matching my foundation color to the color of my neck. So my skin's got a lot of red in it. So it's gonna look a little bit light to begin with, but it is the shade of my neck. So I'm just gonna start to move it out. And with this look, I'm trying to achieve flawless skin, but skin that still looks real. I'm not a fan of overly heavy foundations. I don't find it appealing. So I want to use a foundation that's got full coverage, but use it in a way that will allow me to still have some form of skin coming through. I want the skin to look flawless and beautiful, but I want it to look like skin. And I'm still trying to move this product. Before I start adding product, I'm still trying to move as much of it as I can before I add any more. And when it comes to this area, I'm going to stay away from the eyeshadow portion at this moment, because I can come back to that at the end with a brush to really kind of work it in properly. Now you're going to have to do ears. If your chest is showing, you want to match it to this color that the chest is, not the neck. You want to match it to the color of your body. Otherwise you can have a totally different face color to body color, and we don't want that. So now I'm just going to add a touch more around this outside perimeter and just working it into the hairline. Now, I'm obviously going to cover this side of my eye because there's no eyeshadow on it. And you're really just looking for excess redness in the skin to neutralize. I don't use color correctors or anything like that. I don't think it's necessary the bulk of the time. So the skin is starting to look more even. I'm going to start to work on the ears, and I'm working into the ear, around the ear, and behind the ear. If you're going to wear your hair up and you've got a tendency to have red ears like I do, you've got to work all these sections to make sure that everything is the same color. Foundation does not just stop at the face, unfortunately. You're just taking out the redness, and by taking out the redness, everything just looks so much more even and beautiful. And don't forget to go behind the ears. If you're having your hair up, and sometimes just a little extra on the nose. There tends to be this theory that if this portion of the face is more flawless, everything else tends to look more flawless too. And don't forget the nostrils. So now we're going to deal, because this is enough foundation for me, we're now going to deal with the inner portion of the eye and cleaning up this line underneath. So I'm actually going to take a small brush that has a little bit of concealer on, and I'm just going to start in this inner corner. And the reason I'm using a brush is because it's going to allow me just for a gentler application. Now I like to keep concealer right here. Unless you're very dark under the eyes and you need it all the way across, then do that. But the lightest part I want to be in this section, because when you smile, this doesn't move or crease. Whatever's left on the brush, I'm just going to clean up that outside edge by the eyeshadow. It just makes it look so neat, and it lifts that outside corner of the eye, and it just looks lovely. Now, because I'm not applying any eyeshadow, I'm very lightly just going to colour in the lower part of the eyelid just to take away some of the discoloration, but not a lot. I'm really making sure that this under eye area here is nice and concealed so you get a lovely lifted effect. And just take your sponge and just pat it in place just to blend everything. And you're just going to repeat the same process on the other side. So I'm just going to kind of concentrate on this inner corner, making sure I've got rid of any discoloration on the outside corner, and gently just going above the lash line. And I'm just going to blend this with a sponge since there's no eyeshadow application on this side. And you can see that with the extra light here, that isn't going to crease, but it stays nice and light and bright. And when we set that, it isn't going to crease either, because this area just doesn't crease. Now there's a tiny bit of redness here, so I'm just going to go over with my brush, but it's not a big deal for me. But I'm just going to blend it in, and there's still a little bit of redness around my nose. So I'm just going to use a brush to just help take some of that away. And then I'll just use my sponge to blend it in. And that's how you do a nice application of foundation. When it comes to the hairline, just take that brush and just very gently buff it into the upper part of the hairline just to make sure that everything is covered. And now you're going to get a sponge and a tissue. Okay, so first take a dry sponge, and I want you to very lightly just move down the face with it, just lightly. You're just trying to take off any excess foundation that doesn't need to be there. Then take a tissue, wrap the sponge in the tissue, form a little parcel, and then tap and bounce this all over the skin. You're just taking away any excess oils and pigments from the skin that don't need to be there, and this will make your foundation last a lot longer and look way more beautiful when you powder it. And tap everywhere. Don't miss anything. You'll be surprised that you'll get some product off, and that's good. That's all the excess pigment and oils we just don't need. And that's how to do a beautiful application of foundation. The next video, I'm going to talk about setting. See you next time. Bye-bye.